to the PT on Ice Daily Show. My name is Christina Previtt. I am lead faculty for clinical management of the fitness, athlete, pregnancy, and postpartum. I hope you guys are having a wonderful Monday. We are in full swing for fall courses. It is super exciting. We have Modern Management of the Older Adult, Essential Foundations and Advanced Concepts starting. We have our fitness athlete division ramping up in their online courses. We have a bunch of live courses. And most importantly to this podcast episode, we have clinical management of the fitness athlete, pregnancy, and postpartum starting September 14th. We are in full swing to add a module to the beginning of that course around the female athlete, pregnancy health, and preconception. That's going to be added to the course this cohort. If you have taken this course in the past, you will have access to that new material, but it is something that Kelsey and I have been asked about a lot around women who are having issues with fertility and what that means for their training, if they have to change anything or what's going on with their hormones or what that's going to mean for injury and recovery. So we are going to be adding that to the course this cohort. So I hope you guys are joining us for that. We are already halfway booked up for that course, so I'm really excited. We're going to have a nice big cohort with lots of discussions for this go around. Okay, so I thought today that we would talk about two really well-known CrossFitters who have recently had children and start thinking about how we talk to athletes about pregnancy and labor and delivery. If you have heard me rant about all things pregnancy and labor and delivery, good morning. One of the things that I say a lot is that just because a woman was active before she got pregnant does not mean that she is not going to have issues in her pregnancy. We know that exercise during pregnancy is safe, but exercising does not necessarily guarantee that everything is going to be smooth sailing for labor and delivery. And probably unfortunately for Annie and Camille, they were both pregnant at the same time, which was a great, I know Julie Fouché did a podcast with both of them, and they really spoke to each other about changes happening in their body, et cetera, et cetera. And they have been being compared a lot as two very high level athletes, female athletes who have been in the spotlight a lot in the CrossFit space, and them comparing pregnancy journeys a lot has been going on throughout the CrossFit world. And it's really interesting because you can kind of assume that they have a relative same level of fitness going into pregnancy. Lifestyle factors for them are extremely important. You know, they spent a lot of time working on reducing stress, optimizing sleep, nutrition, and physical capacity. And so these women were are incredible, I shouldn't say was past tense, but are incredible athletes and were in very, very good shape upon getting pregnant. And so comparing and contrasting even from the beginning of their story, from what Annie has divulged online, she didn't really have a tough time getting pregnant, where Camille has talked about her struggles with fertility. So number one, you know, just because you're physically active doesn't mean that fertility is necessarily always going to be the easiest thing for you. I'm going to talk about in upcoming podcasts, but we know that your period is essentially like your monthly report card. And what can be really challenging with things like Red S, that was previously called female athlete triad, is that lack of a period is one of the telltale signs to know that there's some sort of metabolic or hormonal imbalance happening in a woman's body that can lead to issues with fertility down the road. But many of our contraceptives now actually eliminate periods altogether or space them out to every 3 months. And therefore we may not actually know that women are in an energy imbalance where they actually do need to start manipulating their diet a little bit more. That could be something, and then sometimes you don't actually know that something is going on until you're trying to get pregnant and it's not being successful month after month. And then you kind of have to take some steps back and see what's going on from a hormonal perspective, from a diet perspective, from an energy balance perspective. So number one between Annie and Camille is that, you know, just because you're in really good shape does not mean that fertility is always going to become an easy thing. And it may actually be a hard process, a long road for you to get pregnant in the first place, even if you are in really great shape. So that's not something that we can necessarily always control. Then, second thing that people say all the time is you're in great shape, pregnancy is going to be so easy on you. And this was another thing that we can compare and contrast in Annie and Camille's pregnancies. Again, this is all based on what is public perception, so their experience may be very different. But Annie spoke about how she's been having a fairly easy pregnancy. She wasn't experiencing any symptoms of morning sickness, which if you've been pregnant, you know, it's all day sickness. She wasn't having any issues other than some fatigue with like things like pelvic girdle pain, any sort of issues like that, and felt like she could still continue to train at quite a good intensity throughout her pregnancy, especially, you know, that first trimester where women can be completely knocked out with fatigue. Flip that with Camille, and Camille was experiencing horrible hyperemesis gravidarum. And if you don't know what that is, hyperemesis gravidarum is an extreme amount of morning sickness that essentially feels like you have the flu. And oftentimes they'll say that this can improve after the first trimester. So after that first 14 weeks and that 14 to 16 week mark, it can reduce. And for some women, that's the case. For other women, they experience flu-like symptoms. I've treated women who have had flu-like symptoms right until they gave birth, and it made them feel like they couldn't potentially go on with this pregnancy because it was just so severe. They were feeling so ill that they couldn't imagine doing this for 9 to 10 months. And it has been a decision that has really impacted a woman's capacity or willingness to have another child because she had such a negative experience with her first child. And that is completely fair. And so while Annie was able to continue training and was doing everything kind of status quo for at least the first little while, and then she started modifying her workouts around the stage of pregnancy that she was in, Camille was in a very different space where she was hugging a toilet bowl for at least the first several months, and then she was able to slowly get back into exercise as she, you know, was progressing through her pregnancy and her morning sickness, her hyperemesis calmed down a little bit. She was on medications for it. Annie didn't need any medications. So that was the second thing. If we compare and contrast these athletes who we could probably argue were in very similar physical shape and were taking all the healthy lifestyle factors with the same amount of seriousness, that were completely different in their pregnancies. Fast forward towards the end of their pregnancy, Annie delivered a beautiful, healthy baby girl when I think she was like a day or two after her due date, so pretty much on that 40-week mark. When you compare, a heartbreaking story was that Camille started noticing a reduction in fetal movement around 32 weeks. Thank goodness she had such a strong amount of body awareness. I reflected, I don't know if I would notice those tiny switches in fetal movement when you're kind of in your day-to-day life, but she noticed that there was a marked reduction in how much her daughter was moving, went to the hospital, saw that she was in fetal distress at 32 weeks gestation, and ended up having a emergency C-section, delivered. The baby was about 2 pounds, just over 2 pounds, and has been fighting in the NICU, is thankfully doing very well, but has at least a 6 or 8 week stint in the NICU as her systems continue to develop. And so again, like going towards the end of their pregnancy, you know, we say all the time, oh, you'll be fine during your labor and delivery. Everything will go beautifully because you're in such good shape. But, you know, pregnancy, it throws you for a loop. Like it's never always going to be the same for every woman. Their experiences aren't going to be the same. Even if their experiences are the same, the way that they psychologically process what is happening in their body is going to be different. And so you're seeing these two athletes who are now in a very different, even though they're both in newborn stages, they're both living very different experiences because Camille is now recovering from a C-section. She didn't have the same 8 weeks pressure down on her pelvic floor from that fetal growth that tends to happen towards the end of the third trimester versus Annie did, and she is recovering from a spontaneous vaginal delivery. And so all these things are different between these two athletes who on paper look exactly the same. And so this is where, you know, when we're thinking about how we're going to treat the athlete, we want to make sure that we are considering so many things. We want to consider, you know, what their goals are for their pregnancy, what their lived experience is, you know, not only trying to encourage them that they can stay active, but also giving them permission to take a step back. And you do not have to keep pushing if you don't want to keep pushing during your pregnancy. I will facilitate and I will help modify your exercise program as need be, as you continue to progress, as you want to. But it is also okay if you are feeling just horribly because you are still experiencing morning sickness, which is all day sickness when you're 28 weeks pregnant. I will also be that person that will allow you or give you permission or talk through, all these crazy changes that are happening in your body, that you can respect that process and you can respect that time, and we can focus on getting your fitness back once your baby has been born, again, if that is something that you want. And so in the next couple of podcasts that I'm going to be working through on this channel, I'm going to be talking about transitioning back into exercise and some of the other things outside of your physical state. So how your pelvic floor is doing, how your diastasis recti is doing, all those types of things that are extremely important parts of recovery. But you're seeing that these athletes now, and Cara Saunders has just gone through this as well as she's preparing for the games. There's so many things around becoming a new mom that are changing, and things like, you're not going to be able to get 10 hours of sleep like most athletes would be prioritizing when you have a newborn at home that is feeding every 2.5 hours. And so there are so many other things that are coming into play. And oftentimes, as physical therapists, we're focusing on that physical dimension, but especially when you're working with new moms who are putting a lot of pressure on themselves to get back to where they were prior to pregnancy, trying to lose that baby weight, all those types of things. There are so many other variables. And so unfortunately for Annie and Camille, I feel like they've been compared a lot, but I think that it's a really wonderful learning experience to say, just because you're in the just incredible physical shape does not mean that you are completely immune to pregnancy throwing you for a loop and early motherhood throwing you for a loop. And there are so many things that we need to consider when we're working with these athletes, from not only a physical perspective, but a biopsychosocial perspective, an emotional perspective, a mental health perspective, that if we really want to become the providers of choice and physical therapist 2.0 when it comes to working with athletes in this space, we really need to be deep diving into a lot of these other constructs and making sure that we are supporting our athletes as much as we can, given this huge change that is going on in their life. All right, I hope you guys found that helpful. If you guys haven't followed Annie and Camille through their stories, I encourage you. They've been posting a lot on Instagram about their own different experiences as they transition into motherhood and some of their goals about returning to their high-level sport. I think Annie is really trying to focus on getting back to the games, similar to the way Cara Saunders did. I'm not sure if Camille has retired from sport and is working on activity for life, or if she is going to try and make another run for high-level competition. But I encourage you guys to take a look at their stories and really reflect on what their experiences may have been, despite being, these incredible athletes, and they still are incredible athletes. And they just experience things very differently in their transition into motherhood. One was a little bit smoother than the other, and that is okay. And we can support both, and just need to take a little bit of a different course when it comes to their care and their pelvic floor care and their C-section recovery care and their just return to sports and athletics. All right, I hope you guys found that helpful. If you want to talk about this and more, I encourage you guys to sign up for our online version of clinical management of the fitness, athlete, pregnancy, and postpartum. We will be getting started September 14th, and I hope that I see you all there. Bye.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the PT on Ice Daily Show. If you enjoyed this content, head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. And be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at the Institute of Clinical Excellence. If you're interested in getting plugged into more ICE content on a weekly basis while earning CEUs from home, check out our virtual ICE online mentorship program at ptonice.com. While you're there, sign up for our Hump Day Hustling newsletter for a free email every Wednesday morning with our top 5 research articles and social media posts that we think are worth reading. Head over to ptonice.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up.